Hello everyone, welcome back to this episode of Through Marginal Eyes. So, today has been kind of interesting. I have been procrastinating on recording for the past week, so I'm literally recording this on the day it's going to be posted. So, this is really fun for me, for sure. And also, for when I post this on YouTube, the camera quality and angle is going to look very different because my phone currently does not have space on it. I'm trying to figure that out. So I'm recording this on my laptop. So it looks like I'm recording through a microwave. But it's okay. It's fine. Everything's fine. But let's just hop right into this episode. Today, we're going to be doing our first episode celebrating Pride Month. So happy Pride Month. I wanted to, talk about Pride Month in some way because obviously it's a very important holiday for so many people, not just in America, but also for people who can't celebrate Pride in other places in the world that are more conservative. Like in Hungary, they're right now banning any mention of queer activity or just the existence of queer people in media or in schools as a bill to stop pedophilia, which is an interesting take. Very, very ratioed, because that makes literally no sense. Like, just as a little, this isn't part of the disclaimers today, but just as a little side note. This is the reason that we're having Pride, because it's not just about celebrating, who people love and who people, if you're older, who people sleep with. It's celebrating the work that got us here to be able to celebrate those things, and also to celebrate and fight for the people who can't do that yet in other places. So we're just going to kick this right off. Oh, also, I want to mention the day that this goes up and the day that I'm recording is Juneteenth, a very special, special day. It is when slavery really ended, because even though the Emancipation Proclamation was about 2 years before Juneteenth, pretty much no one told enslaved people this for 2 years, and it finally got declared on today, Juneteenth, June 19th. And I probably will be making an episode about Juneteenth being made a federal holiday because it's a very interesting situation. I'm happy that it is being nationally recognized, but there's a lot of other things and layers that go into celebrating that I think need to go more in depth, just not in this episode. But I wanted to say happy Juneteenth, and to support people today, support Black-owned businesses, donate to Black organizations and Black-owned businesses, give your Black friends money. And reparations, am I right? And, just take today to educate yourself on Juneteenth and Black history and, abolition and, escaped slaves besides Harriet Tubman, just take a day to educate. There's a TikToker that is doing a really good job at educating people on this. I will have to put it in the description of this episode just because I do not remember off the top of my head, but I will put her TikTok @ and Instagram @ in the description of today's episode, so you guys can learn more about that if you so desire, but I encourage you to do that. And also, because it is Pride and Juneteenth, we can celebrate the trans people of color who got us Pride Month, like Marsha P. Johnson and Sylvia Rivera, and all these other wonderful people who fought for us at the Stonewall riots in June of the 1960s, I believe. And just take a day to celebrate them, because they're the reason that we can be here with the rights that we have. Marsha P. Johnson is a Black trans woman, and she organized with a bunch of other people to get us this day. This day, I'm funny, this month. So because of all these wonderful events and people doing all these wonderful things, and also the Pride Parade in Tulsa is going to be next Saturday. I'm probably not going to be able to go because I have to do podcasting, upload the podcast and also do some stuff that day, but since it is Pride Month, I wanted to do a little bit of a more educational thing to kick it off, which is basically go through all the different terms of the acronym of the LGBTQ plus ABCs. Basically just the basics of, the queer community, which is the title of today's episode. Disclaimers for today. I am personally still learning about a lot of these identities. Although I am part of the community, I obviously do not understand every single little thing that happens in this community. And so I'm still educating myself. If I don't portray a certain identity in the best light, or I don't explain it exactly how it's supposed to be explained, that is on me, and I will continue to educate myself on these different identities. I hope to do as much justice as I can to each of them. And also, for people listening who are more out of touch with the queer community, this will sound like a bunch of gibberish to you. And I just want to put that out there. Because I'm doing this not just for, either allies or queer people who just want to learn more. I'm doing this also for the people who do listen to my podcast and are just not educated a little or at all about the different people that reside in this wonderful family. And I just want to preface this by saying this will sound confusing to those people. It will sound like gibberish and a bunch of, people are making this stuff up to be different and blah blah blah. It will sound like that, but I just want to put it out there. Just keep an open mind for me with this episode, because I wouldn't be mentioning it if millions of people didn't identify in these different ways. So those are today's disclaimers, and I also want to apologize for any background noise, like if this little boy starts barking or if there's stuff moving around the house, because I can't control that, and I record in my room, so I'm trying my best. So let's get into it, guys. So first, I want to go over some basic terms that technically aren't in the acronym but will help, make this dive a little bit easier. So first, we're going to go into the term cishet. So the word cis or cisgender means someone who identifies with the gender that they were born as. It's basically if you were born a boy and you are a boy and still identify as that your whole life, then you're cisgender, just like I am. I was born female and identify as a girl still, so I am cisgender. Het or heterosexual just means that you're straight and you're only attracted to people of the opposite gender. So that's what the term cishet means, and you'll hear that a lot in queer spaces or in just people talking about cishet people, straight, not trans people, because it's an important distinction to make in a lot of cases. Now, the difference between gender and sex is also something I want to get into real quick. Gender is what you identify as in your brain. It's what you feel you are and how you present to the world is your gender. The sex is whatever genitals you were born with. And it is an important distinction because a lot of people are born a certain sex but do not identify with the gender that is supposed to align with that sex, and we'll get into that later when we go through the acronym. Those are just some terms that are going to be used regularly, and you need a little bit of base understanding. Also, sexual orientation or sexuality is the different genders or sexes that someone is attracted to. And this does not at all correlate with what gender you personally are. Of course, there are some terms that are more aligned with one gender than another, but just because you're a feminine man does not automatically mean that you are gay, and just because you are a masculine woman does not automatically mean that you are a lesbian. So just stuff like that, sexual orientations, whoever you're attracted to, and it doesn't automatically have to do with your gender expression and what you are, if that makes any sense. Alright, so those are our basic terms, and now we're going to go through the acronym. And I'm going through basically the full acronym, which is LGBTQIAP, and I guess there was some plus after that I will go over because some of it isn't directly stated in that acronym. So yeah, let's get into it. First is L, which is lesbian, which is basically women who are attracted to other women, or another easier way to say this is non-men who are attracted to non-men, just because there are other kinds of people, like non-binary people, who are attracted to only women, or women who are attracted to women and non-binary people that are feminine. I will explain non-binary later. I just wanted to put that out there. But basically, lesbian in the most simple terms is women who are attracted to other women. And yeah, that's just the simple definition. I also wanted to put out there, I'm going to be explaining some stereotypes and issues that a lot of people in these different communities face, because there are different struggles for everyone in the LGBTQ plus community. Even though we're all in the same community, and even though we should all accept each other, there are some, internal conflicts. So lesbians, one thing that they have to deal with a lot is the fetishization of women loving women. And it can be really hard because, men will be like, oh yeah, girls who like girls are hot, but guys who like guys, that's an abomination and that's gross. Like, ew, bro, no homo, why would you even do that kind of thing? And that's not cool. If your acceptance only relates to who you're attracted to, then it's not acceptance. And also, women's attraction to each other has nothing to do with men. So the fetishization of lesbians needs to stop, because literally anything that they do together has nothing to do with men at all. So I just wanted to touch on that. There are a lot of women, a lot of same-sex women couples have to face stuff like that. So yeah, I just wanted to put that out there. He's a lesbian ally, as you can tell. Next is the G, which means gay. This has become more of a universal umbrella term over the years. Even people who are attracted to multiple genders will say that they're gay, and I can attest to that. It happens all the time. Lesbian people might say that they're gay, and that's just the end of it. It is technically a universal term, but it was, the core definition is, men who are attracted to other men, or non-women who are attracted to non-women. And gay men specifically even have their own separate flag, like, just to represent just male-loving male couples, which I think is great. I think it's also, they're really pretty colors. They're like greens and blues, and I love it a lot. But, I think when you think of a gay person, most people automatically think of gay men, especially whenever they're not in the queer community. And I would say gay men definitely, they have very unique struggles in a lot of ways. In a lot of ways, especially if they're white, cisgendered gay men. they can often be almost entitled and privileged in their own way, and that has to do with intersectionality that I can touch on in something else. But I think in this day and age, when LGBTQ plus people are more accepted, I've noticed a lot of straight girls just jump on the bandwagon of, oh, I want a gay best friend. I support you and your journey of happiness or whatever. And it's kind of the same situation with the lesbian thing. Girls want a gay best friend and oh my god, yes, queen, oh my god, you're so brave, oh, look at you. And then when it comes to lesbians, it's oh, don't have a crush on me or anything. I know my friends have gotten comments like that, and it's gross. It's just gross. So I would say that lesbians and gay men have very similar struggles in a lot of ways when it comes to how straight people perceive them, and also how little representation of gay men of color there are. Most gay representation is just white gay men, and I think that's kind of interesting. And they're always portrayed, if they're couples, they're usually portrayed as normal guys who just happen to like each other, straight passing people. But then whenever it comes to other things, they're super flamboyant and feminine and blah blah blah, when not all people are like that. So it's very interesting. It's a very interesting concept. I think that those things are very interesting, and I'd like to learn more about them and how people view these people just for liking someone else. Anyways, we're getting on to my favorite letter of the alphabet. Well, technically my favorite letter is A, but my favorite letter of this alphabet, which is the B, which is me. What is it like to be me? Well, it's pretty great. The B stands for bisexual. And bisexual just means anyone who is attracted to two or more genders. And I'm just going to say that multisexual people, or people who, there's different sexualities that I will go over later in this episode, but people who like more than one gender tend to go through a very specific kind of struggle, and I personally have felt a lot of them. So over the past few years, people think it's trendy to be queer. It's not, first of all. It's not cool. And people who do think people are doing it to be cool, I think you need to reevaluate your thought process, because I don't know why someone would choose to be oppressed. But some reason, some people think it's cool, and it happens a lot with young people trying to say that they're bi. Literally people in my middle school went through a phase of oh yeah, I'm bi, but I wouldn't kiss a girl or date a girl or ever be involved with one because ew, they're disgusting. And I'm honey, no, you're lying to yourself. People like me actually feel those things, and it made me go through a whole freaking identity crisis, because when I met my friends in middle school, I hung out with the gay kids because one of my best friends found this group of friends. We all started hanging out, and then I realized that I liked girls, and then I had an identity crisis to where I thought I was doing it for attention because other people were doing it for attention. So I didn't want to be that person who only became, quotes, became gay just because I wanted to fit in. So I denied my sexuality for literally 2 years because I didn't want to face it head on. So literally all these people who are taking queer identities upon themselves really hurts actually queer people. My friend and I both went through this struggle together. Like me and one of my best friends literally had this dilemma at the same time together because we thought we were just looking for attention when literally no one cared. It's an interesting phenomenon. But also, bisexual people are not half and half all the time. Like, you're not half straight, half gay. You're not 50% straight, 50% gay, you're 100% bisexual. And this becomes even more apparent because bisexual people have completely different experiences than just people who are attracted to one gender. For example, girls who are bisexual often have the response that you're just straight and experimenting, or you're just straight and confused, and something along those lines. When it comes to bisexual men, it's often you're just gay and want to have some of your straight privilege, or like if you're gay, just say that kind of response. When it's like, no, people's attraction to multiple genders is valid. And I would just like to say, this is rooted in the fact that all people think that attraction has to be catered to men. Because demonstrated by that example, women are told that they are attracted to men and they just took a few extra steps the other way. Meaning that they expect women to be attracted to men, and that should be the default. When it comes to men liking other men, when they're bisexual, they're called gay because they're expected to only like other men, meaning it caters to men. I'd just like to say that's pretty misogynistic, and we should stop considering and invalidating that people's sexualities are wrong and not what they tell us. Literally makes no sense. And also the myth that people who like multiple genders are gonna cheat on you. Oh, look at he rose up. Look at him. Sorry. That people who like multiple genders are more likely to cheat on you and are more promiscuous. That's not the case at all. I don't think you understand that queer people are so confused all of the time. We don't have the energy to be promiscuous. We're just trying to figure out what we're gonna eat for breakfast. It's really not that deep. We're just trying to live our lives. Half of us, especially bisexual people, can barely find a partner because we're so anxiety-ridden and confused. I just can't with these myths anymore, baby. It's just too much. But that is my spiel on bisexual people who are really cool and have a really pretty flag color scheme. I have 2 drawings over there with my color scheme. It's pink, purple, and blue. Most beautiful ombre colors ever. Love it so much. Anyways. Next, the T, which is transgender. And transgender means that you do not identify as the sex you're born as. So, for example, if someone was born female, but they actually identify as a boy, then they're transgender. Vice versa. And this can also include non-binary people sometimes. Non-binary people I will put under the trans umbrella just because they technically do not have a number, a letter in the acronym. And I think that many of them find themselves in this bubble of trans, but some of them don't, and I will explain this. So non-binary people are people who do not identify within the binary of male and female. They can be somewhere in between, and they can be somewhere outside of that binary. Now, personally, I'm still trying to figure out what outside of the binary means, and I honestly just think I need to ask my NB friends, but I don't really understand what outside of the binary means. I'm still trying to educate myself on that, but I can understand what inside, like within the binary, and just not on. So the binary, basically, male, female, man, woman, right? Feminine, masculine. But non-binary people can be anywhere in between that and not perfectly aligned with one side. And this can be considered transgender because you technically don't align with the sex you're born as, right? And some non-binary people will claim the identity transgender for themselves. But there are others that don't, and they're just as valid. Every experience is different, and I'm still trying to educate myself on this specific identity. So I would just suggest, if you have non-binary friends who are willing to talk about it, ask them about it. And if you don't have any, then just research it yourself. Google is free. And although there are some insights that you can only get from people talking about their own experiences, you can get basic knowledge on this just by Googling it. There are so many public forums and stuff like that, and blog posts like on Tumblr, and articles that explain stuff like this if you don't personally understand. That's just my take on it. But that covers non-binary people. I have several non-binary friends, and you know, we all work through and talk about their different expressions, and how, you know, and especially whenever they're still figuring themselves out, like whether they were actually a boy or actually a girl, or why are they feeling feminine this day but, you know, masculine this day, or just nothing the next day. Like, it's very interesting. So I just think those kinds of experiences vary from person to person, and you would have to ask people specifically for their specific experience if you want to even conceptualize, you know, the full experience counter of what it's like to be a non-binary person. If that makes any sense. I went on a little tangent, I apologize. Now, with just binary trans people, it can be very frustrating and very taxing on the psyche to try to figure out where you are along this journey. Like, I personally believe, in terms of legality and, you know, rights, trans people have it so hard. So unbelievably hard. There is literally laws in place, or trying to take place, that will take health care away from them simply for them living their truth. And it's so devastating. And parents of trans kids who just want to support their children and be awesome allies can be charged with a felony just for getting their children resources to transition. I just don't understand why people care so much. Like, they're literally doing nothing to bother you, and you're pressed about it. Oh, let me talk about transitioning real quick. So, when it comes to transitioning, like, let's just say, a male to female, for example. When you're younger, you're not going to be doing many medically transitioning things. You might take something called hormone blockers, which will block certain hormones from being produced for however long you need them to not be produced for. So, for example, from male to female, you don't, if you know for sure, like maybe around the ages of 12 to 13, which you can know, you knew you, like, let's say you were born a guy, you knew you were a guy at 13 years old. So someone can know that they're a girl at 13 years old. People know these things from very young ages. Anyways, so let's say, male, which produces testosterone, which is, women also have testosterone, so it's not just, but it's just a primarily male hormone. Once that hormone starts being produced, a kid will start going through puberty, and that's how puberty happens, is the like constant release of these hormones for the rest of your life, If a kid is a girl in a boy's body, that's going to devastate them, and that will put them through something called dysphoria, where they feel uncomfortable with things that happen that aren't for their I'll say preferred, but it's not preferred, it's just what they are, but for their preferred gender. So, like, if I went through male puberty, I would feel disgusting. Because I'm not a dude, I'm a girl. Pretty much. So, in order to stop that puberty from happening for someone, they might go on hormone blockers just to stop that hormone. It is completely reversible, and that's why you do it when a kid is when it is young or still questioning, so that they don't ruin their lives by having the puberty, but it's also reversible, so nothing bad really happens. And also these myths about trying to inject estrogen into young children, like, you literally cannot get hormones until you're like older teenager and an adult, because no one's giving testosterone and estrogen to literal 5-year-olds. Calm down. But that's one way that you can, medically transition when you're young. And there's also socially transitioning, like wearing certain clothes, talking a certain way, having your hair done a certain way, all these other things of what society tells us what's a girl and a boy, stuff like that. That's kind of transitioning, and that's what some people are gonna go to prison for. Doctors can go to prison for diagnosing kids with gender reassignment procedures, like hormones and surgeries, when they're young. I don't understand. I just don't understand why people care so much. I just want to say that trans people are just... they're the reason we have Pride. They're the reason we have Pride Month. I love them. I love everyone who has had the courage and also the resources to be their true selves. People who don't have the resources to be their true selves and have to stay hidden. I love all of you. You're all so cool. That's kind of the basics of trans people. Next, we're going to go into the Q, which is queer and questioning. So, I have been using the term queer to describe all LGBTQ plus people, just because it's an umbrella term for the community. But I also want to acknowledge that the word queer used to, and still can be for some people, a slur. Queer people have reclaimed it, and a lot of people are not as bothered by it. There are some people who are. And, as a queer person, I personally like to reclaim it and see it as a very beautiful thing. Because literally the word queer just means different or odd or something like that. And even though we aren't odd, I just think it's a beautiful word. And so the word queer can be given or taken upon by anyone who doesn't align with any other label. It's just it's basically just like using the general term of fruity for yourself. Like, it's just whatever you want it to mean, basically. And I think it's really cool because there are some people who just genuinely hate labels. But, some people will still ask them for that label. And they can just say queer, and they're like, okay, cool. You could like girls more than guys. You could like guys more than girls. You can like people who aren't either of those things more. You can have any combination or ratios of those things, And I think that that's really cool. I really like that term. I use it sometimes just because it's a little bit easier to, I guess, understand. But also just the word bi works. Bisexual is too long of a word. Just say bi. It's really easy. Anyways, that's off topic. But that's where the word queer comes from. And that's just for anyone who, doesn't want a label. Or wants a label and nothing else fits them, kind of thing. And also queer, Q is for questioning. And these are for people who still haven't figured themselves out yet, but know that they're a part of the community, or don't know if they're part of the community, actually. Like, if you're just curious and want to try stuff out. I still have friends who are questioning, and it's okay. Them being in this community is still, like, they're still in the community, because they can tell that they're in the community, but they're still searching for a specific label. And that's cool. You can question for the rest of your life if you have to. I think that's a really cool part about changing acronym, is that we include people who aren't completely sure of their identity, because not everyone is. Not everyone will be. But I think a struggle that comes with being queer and questioning is that, people pressure you, both straight and gay people will pressure you to, just choose something. Just choose. Figure it out. Come on. It's not that hard. Just because you had an easier journey figuring out your sexuality doesn't mean it's going to be like that for every other person. And I will admit, I had it pretty easy figuring stuff out. Definitely not the easiest in the world, but I was able to figure myself out by 7th grade and be okay with myself by like 8th grade. Despite all the other stuff of, still not kind of being accepted by some people, the fact that I'm kind of coming out just by doing this podcast to some people, like, this is my coming out, kind of scary, kind of weird, but I'd say I had a relatively easy coming out story, especially because my friends are so accepting and blah blah blah. Some people don't have that. Some people live in way worse situations where they can get kicked out or killed for being what they are. Some people who just are genuinely just it just messes up your mind trying to figure out what you are. But I feel like as a queer community, we have to acknowledge that, because it is a very real part of being part of the community, is just not knowing what's going on. Like, I'm telling you, all gay people are confused all of the time. It's just this time it happens to be about what type of queer you are, and not, what math is, kind of thing. You know what I mean? So it's just, the Q is here to acknowledge the people who aren't as confident in their identities, or are confident in their nondescript identity, or are just still figuring it out. And I think that's super cool. Next, we're going to go to the I, which is for intersex. Now, intersex is more of a biological term, and it basically just means anybody who wasn't born with the, I guess, typical characteristics that entail from their biological sex, basically. So some intersex people don't even know that they're intersex for their entire life, because it could mean that some of your chromosomes, like, let's say you were born a female, which technically means XX, but some of your chromosomes could be XY, and some of them could be XX, but you still live your life not even knowing that kind of thing. Some people, it's more, I guess, obvious. Some people are born with different variations of genitals, actually. Some people have different secondary sex characteristics, which those kind of things are like your bone structure, chest development, Adam's apples, hair texture, skin texture, and hair growth, and other things like that. Some people could have all kinds of variations of those different secondary sex characteristics. Some people could have variations of the primary sex characteristics, which are genitalia and stuff like that. It could affect it. There can be different levels of hormones. There can be just all kind of combinations of these things. For intersex people, it can be kind of difficult figuring stuff out gender-wise, because some intersex people some intersex people can be trans, some of them aren't, and that's just a different part of their identity. And some intersex people cannot know that they're intersex, not just because it's very mild, but also because doctors and parents will give children surgeries and other things as babies to correct their faults. And intersex people aren't mistakes. Sure, it's technically, scientifically abnormal, but it doesn't make them wrong. They're not wrong as humans. They just happen to be built different. I don't know what to tell you. And so a lot of intersex people who have later in life found out that they're intersex and didn't know have just been I wish that, parents didn't give me this surgery when I was young and I had nothing. I didn't consent to being like this. If I wanted to be changed in the future, that should have been my call, because it's my identity and my body kind of thing. You know what I mean? Then other intersex people, someone came on my For You page actually a few days ago, and she's a woman, but a lot of people have thought that she was trans because she has a very, very full beard and has her hair cut short, but she also has fully developed breast and other things. But the reason that she has such a full beard is because she stopped shaving, because it was so annoying to have to do it all the time, along with, shaving the rest of your body, because shaving the rest of your body is freaking annoying, and why would you want to do that all the time? Anyways, but yeah, she's intersex, who is very much, I guess, it's a very clear combination of both kind of sex characteristics. So intersex people come in all shapes, sizes, sexualities, colors, all this other kind of stuff, and we just need to accept them because they're people like us. They just happen to have different genetic, things, just like people with disabilities. They're built like that, just like people they're just built like that. So just give them respect and, I don't know, be nice. Next is the letter A, which is my favorite letter in the general alphabet. It's a very nice letter. Have you noticed? A is a very nice letter. Anyways, the letter A stands for asexual. So, basically, the term asexual means that someone has little to no sexual attraction towards other people. And there's different umbrella terms within this that I will go over in a second. But asexual people do not have a mental issue unless they have separate mental issues. Calling y'all out, friends. But asexual, being asexual isn't inherently a mental issue. Is that not your time, Simon? But being asexual is not inherently a mental issue. Sorry, I repeated myself 3 times. I was just trying to get myself back on track. It just means that you're not attracted to people like that. And there's different levels of asexuality. People who are asexual can completely be repulsed to any kind of sexual activity of all kinds. But there's some people who don't, desire it, but they'll do it for a partner or something like that. And asexual people, some might not, but lots of asexual people still want or can have romantic relationships or want romantic relationships. Like, they want a partner like that, they just don't crave the sexual part of it, you know what I mean? And then there's also the opposite of that, which is aromantic, which means that they can experience sexual attraction, but they don't experience romantic attraction. And aromantic people are not heartless robots who have no feelings. Aromantic people just don't crave romantic relationships. They think it's weird and they don't understand it, which makes sense, because it's freaking confusing. But they just, like, they have love for people. They love their family and their friends and their pets and their work and their passions, but they just might not love people. They just don't love people like that in that kind of way. Some people can be both aromantic and asexual. They can not like anybody romantically or sexually. Again, doesn't mean that they're heartless robots and that have no feelings. Just means that they don't like people like that. And there's one more term I want to touch on in this umbrella, which is demisexual. And this can be confusing to some people, but it basically means people don't develop sexual attraction towards someone unless they have a deep emotional connection with someone. Now, this does not mean that you'll only, have sexual relations with someone after you know them. You can still be attracted to someone that way. But there are some people who just... I heard a really good example of this on TikTok, and I don't have the ad. I'm so sorry. But, basically, I guess you can consider attraction like fuel, and someone's attraction is like a tank. Asexual people and demisexual people just don't have that tank. There's no tank to put the fuel into. But the tank only gets installed by someone, for demisexual people, the tank only gets installed by someone who you have a very deep personal, emotional connection with. Metaphors, poetry, literally a literature icon. But that's kind of what that means. And one thing I've noticed about asexual people is that a lot of queer people have tried to not include them as part of the community. Just because, like, let's say you have an asexual person, but they're romantically attracted to the opposite sex, making them technically straight. But I still believe they have a place in this community. They have to deal with struggles like the rest of us. Whether they're worse or less is up for personal debate, but they have to deal with those kind of judgments and are technically different like the rest of us. So just because someone can be straight and ace doesn't mean that they're any less part of the community than anyone else. Same thing with aromantic people. If you don't experience romantic attraction, but you're sexually attracted to people of the opposite sex, you're still part of the queer community because, you have attraction differences in terms of society like the rest of us, and you deserve to be part of the community. Yeah. Oh, that's what I was going to say. So asexual people can also be attracted to different genders. Like, let's say someone's asexual, no sexual attraction, but they can romantically be bi and romantically be attracted to two genders. Something like that. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of layers to that. That can be a whole other conversation. That's just kind of a baseline. It's a lot to explain in just a few minutes, but that's the A of the alphabet. Next, we're going to go into the P. P actually has quite a few labels under it. There's pansexual, which is the most common. Polysexual, which is, I'll get into that. And then also polyamorous. So pansexual means that you are attracted to all genders. Because pan, like the prefix pan in Greek, means all. Like pandemic. Get your vaccine. Anyways, so pansexual means that you're just attracted to everyone. Not everyone, but every gender. Like, they're not attracted to every single person that's walked this green earth. But, you know, they're attracted to every gender. And for a lot of pansexual people, you basically you're just attracted to people regardless of gender. You'll take anyone if their personality is great. It's a different definition for every person. So you'd have to ask a pansexual person about their definition of it, because it can change from person to person. People will often say that to pan people, like, you're just bi. You just want to be different and don't want to be bi. You know, and I had one in my head and it just I literally felt the thought fly away, and it hurts my brain. Oh, like you just want to be different from bi people. You're just bi, and they also face a lot of the struggles that bisexual people do. Like, you know, the saying that you're just confused. It's just a phase. You're just taking a few extra steps the other direction. Blah blah blah. But they're not. They're just chilling. And also, pan people are not attracted to kitchenware. Thank you very much. But a good joke. They did not come out of the closet. They came out of the pantry. Anyways, we're going to move on to polysexual. And that just means that you're attracted to most genders, but not all of them. Again, still trying to figure out and educate myself on this term. I have not personally found anyone who is identified as this, but I know that people do, so I'm going to include it in here. But I personally don't know anyone who is identified as this. But again, similar to pansexual and bisexual people, they experience relatively the same struggles of just, you know, not being taken seriously by people who want to date them. I actually want to mention this real quick before I get into the next term. This is about all sexualities who are attracted to multiple genders. There are a lot of gay people who are very judgmental about us. Like, there are gay men who don't want to date bisexual men because, you know, they might have been with girls and that's gross. Or there's lesbians who might not want to be with pansexual women because they might have been with men. That's gross. Or they're more likely to cheat on me and I want people who are actually gay. And that's not cool. Like, you're literally being discriminatory to us just the way that straight people are discriminatory to you guys. We did nothing to you. Just leave us alone. Capiche? Capiche. Okay, next is polyamorous. Some people still don't understand the concept of this, and I can understand because we live in a kind of world where, you know, people are only expected to marry one person for the rest of their life, which is the way I'm going to do it personally. I personally like to just, I would personally want to stay with one person, but polyamorous people can love multiple people at one time and make it work, and it takes a lot of communication, and there's a lot of stuff that goes into it, not just people are I don't know. People just want all this stuff. Why can't they just like one person? Well, some people might just, and I've heard a lot of polyamorous people say that, like, just like you have friends for different situations, like one friend can be for, having fun and going and just like, doing fun things. One friend is, for talking about emotional things and, like, getting really deep. One friend could just be talking about just one special interest that you both have, kind of thing. That can be the same thing with partners. And so as long as you can make that work, then that good for you. I'm like, to those people, they are all consenting people who do their own thing, and I just, like, if you don't like it, just leave them alone. Just let them be. They're not hurting you. They're just living their life. I think a lot of the problems that a lot of us face is just the fact that people judge too much and don't mind their business, and if they just stayed out of it, it wouldn't be an issue. But, that's my take. But that's the P of this alphabet. Now, I want to talk about one more term. Is it one more term that I'm going to do today? We're going to do one more term. And it is the term two-spirit. Now, this is included, and some people do include this in the acronym. I probably should have included it in the acronym, but I thought it deserved its own little segment at the end because it is a very interesting thing that I'm still educating myself on, and I think it's a really cool thing, and I want to learn more about it. So, the term two-spirit basically is a term that is used in a lot of Native American communities, and it has a lot of respect and ancestry. Has lots of respect and responsibilities, and the respect is just the best word that comes along with that term. It can be kind of in the non-binary bubble in a sense. Basically, Native people had lots of respect for women. Like, a lot of tribes were matriarchal, so women played a really important role and were very respected, and unlike today's society, just they were just treated a lot better in a lot of ways in Native communities. And the term two-spirit, kind of played on the role that both men and women are equally important, and some people can, not play. These people can identify with both of these roles and do the jobs of both men and women, and they were treated with really high regard, and they had they got to wear different garments that were, for either gender, whatever, like they got special garments and stuff like that, and I think it's a really cool term, and I think it's probably so validating for a lot of Native people who it probably brings them a lot closer to their Native identity, having something so special to be attached to. And so I'm personally learning more about this term. There's been a lot of posts, like, on my Instagram, like, explaining things, like, on the accounts, like LGBT and Pride and all those, which I think is really cool that people are finally educating themselves and educating other people about this really cool term. And this just goes to show you that queer people did not just appear in the past few decades. They've existed for lots and lots and lots of centuries. Because this is a very old term that has been used for a long time. I don't know what the term would be in Native languages, but yeah, people You should only really use this if you are Native American yourself. It is reserved for Native people, it is part of their culture, and it is not ours to colonize. But I thought I'd throw that in there because I think it's a really cool thing to explore different kinds of gender expression through all different kinds of cultures. And I just think it's really, really cool. So, to end off today's episode, I want to say that just respect people who are different from you. And if you have a loved one that is gay of some sort, just tell them that you love them. Tell them that you respect them. They're trying really hard just to exist in this world that makes it so hard for them. And just be there for them. And also, for my trans and non-binary friends out there, respect someone's pronouns. You might think it's hard, but it's really not. Someone tells you that they go by he, him. He went to the grocery store. He just came back. That backpack is his. If someone tells you that their pronouns are they, them, they went to the grocery store to pick up some flour for the waffles that they are going to make. Oh yeah, that waffle iron is theirs. I don't know why I'm in the kitchen today, but we're in the kitchen today. If someone tells you their pronouns are she, they, she went to the grocery store to pick up flour for the waffles that they are going to make. Yeah, that waffle iron, that's hers. Switch between. Respect people. Treat people with kindness. All you want to do is, fight for our rights. Like, the ability for gay men and bisexual men to donate blood when they can't because HIV is still a stereotype in today's society. 40 years after the HIV breakout. Women want to love other women without being sexualized. Trans people want to be themselves without being criminalized for being themselves. Gay people in other countries want to live their truth without being killed by their parents or the government. So just have some love in your heart for people this month especially, but throughout the whole year. Because we just want to be accepted. That's it. I liked this episode. This was a cool concept I came up with all by myself, obviously. I'm just kidding. I don't know what that came from, but this is really fun. Today, our song recommendation is gonna be, I just forgot the name. No, Pyramids by Frank Ocean. Because Frank Ocean is one of my favorite people of all time, and I love him a lot. His music is very good. Listen to all of his music. Actually, I'm going to give 2 today because I'm feeling fancy. Listen to Pyramids by Frank Ocean and Chanel by Frank Ocean. Very good songs. Very good times. We love it here. Alright. Thank you guys so much. I love you guys a lot. Thank you for listening. Next week, we're going to be talking about the concept of rainbow capitalism. And we'll also have a special guest next week that you guys will meet. So, can't wait for that. Thank you guys so much. Have a wonderful day, and happy Pride.